All right, so here we are talking today
Hello.
about 3D training with Joe. I think we both have some ideas on that topic, and we actually both have some experience. So yeah, let's just talk about it. I think it's a nice topic. It's an interesting topic. I think a lot of people don't even have so much knowledge about that one, especially people who are not so much into training and into strength training and muscle training. So yeah, maybe first of all, if you like, two or three sentences, words to sum up what is actually 3D training. Joe, let's go.
In two sentences, that's going to be hard. Maybe a little bit more.
Two and a half.
But I think what you said, the main reason that people don't know about it is probably that when you go to the gym, you get this 3 times 15 reps intro beginner plan, and then it never gets updated, and then it kind of gets lost that there's other dimensions to fitness. So for me, the 3D is like the 3 dimensions that we have to cover, and I mean it's a perspective, and like we talked about it before, so I know a little how you structure the different training approaches or the different priorities dimensions in training. And yeah, so for me the 3 dimensions are power, strength, and strength endurance, and then cardio and all that is like separate from my strength training approach. And
Mhm.
I just use this framework or this perspective to how to structure training during the week and how to make sure that all three of these are covered. Because, like, as you know, it's important for everybody to train all of these to stay balanced and fit. And yeah, that was 3.5 sentences, I guess, right? More or
Mhm.
less.
Mm. Yes,
So, what do you? What can you add? Like, what's 3D training?
three and a half more or less.
What is it for you?
So yeah, I have kind of a similar idea on it, and I think it's actually like a pretty settled approach, a pretty defined thing. So there's actually different kinds of strengths. One different types, one type of strength. For me, you say this is power, like explosive power, right? Explosiveness and
Yes.
this kind of power and strength. I call, or for me, this type is maximum strength, all right, which is also kind of interferes a lot with explosiveness. Then we have like the actual 8 to 12 rep range, which is hypertrophy,
Yep.
muscle growth. So this is what you train for when you actually what bodybuilders do, for example. And then there's the third type, which is actually muscle endurance, which is actually a thing a bodybuilder, for example, wouldn't need. All right. So I think all of us, in the best case, that's what I do myself and what I do with my clients. I try to actually cover all of these three areas. But then, I mean, we can talk about that later. But then I think for athletes of certain kinds of sports, it makes more sense to have a higher proportion or to train more focused this or that type of strength.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Or
yeah,
for certain other groups as well. Like if you look at longevity and more older populations,
yeah,
for them it's
yeah,
also super important. For me, in my opinion, especially power, because that gets lost really quick, and then catching yourself from a fall or even not falling
yeah,
is, yeah, it's based on your power.
yeah,
And so totally, it's important to train all of them. For most people, I would say equally, or make sure that all the bases are covered to a good extent. And then it's more maybe about what would you say, preference, personal preference, or what kind of hobby do I engage in.
yeah,
And then, of
yeah.
course, for professional athletes or people with certain conditions or situations, it's even more specific.
Yeah.
But talking about how, like, staying within the range of like general population and our normal training goals of being fit, healthy, useful, pain free, how do you spread that over the week? Like, how do you make sure they get like you talked about, the maximum strength, including the power output and the hypertrophy, the muscle growth, and the strength endurance. So what's your approach?
So basically, when I have a client, for example, who does 3 workouts a week, full body workouts, so training all the muscle groups, then I usually try to actually train the maximum strength, or what you say, power, the muscle growth, all right, so this the second type, and muscle endurance in one training, like in one training on Monday and another training on Wednesday and then another training on Friday. So with all of my trainings, I have all these three types covered more or less equally, depending on the person and, as we said, the individual preferences. But this is usually how I do it, starting with explosiveness or muscle maximum strength. I usually, for example, if I start the workout with bench press, I would do 1 or 2 sets of maximum strength bench press, so like 1, 2 or 3 reps, so a maximum, like a very high weight. Then I would do another 1 or 2 sets in the 8 to 12 rep range, all right, for actual muscle growth. And then focusing on muscle endurance, I would do like mostly 1 set, maybe even 2 sets with lighter weight, where I actually do like 15, 20, maybe even 25 reps to train muscle endurance. So I have it covered. Like, for example, now we were talking about a bench press. I do the same with squats, for example. Here also with squats, we wouldn't have to start with super heavy squats. I mean, we could do that, but also we could start with explosive squats, right? To focus on explosiveness, have that first type covered. Then the second type would again be like 8 to 12 reps. And the third one, in the end, I would do 1 set of squats where I choose a super lightweight that for some people, they don't even need the weight. So they do like something between 15 to 25 reps, maybe even 30 to train muscle endurance.
For example. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is how I do it.
And
to sum it up, I try to actually cover all of these three types of strength in the trainings that I do throughout the weeks. In each of these trainings.
Yeah, you mean in each of these? Yeah, because I mean,
exactly.
I of course also try to cover it during the week, but my approach is a little bit different. Just 1 or 2 questions for you. It's or more comments about it, because what you said with the jump squats, and I think there's the important difference between the maximum strength and actual power output, because power also always needs the quickness. And then how do you, for example, do you adjust the tempo for hypertrophy exercises or for strength endurance? What's your approach there? Do you?
Yeah, good question, actually. So for explosiveness, obviously, especially the positive part of the movement. So for example, with jump squats, explosive as fast as possible, you want to get as high as possible and actually release all the strength that you have. This is, I think, very important, and this is the main idea about this training type. Otherwise, it doesn't make so much sense. So you try to actually release all the power that you have in that one movement, and then do a few reps of that until you get super tired. Then with hypertrophy training, I think, which is what is very important to actually hit the muscle in the right way and in the right intensity, to go down slow or do the negative movement slow. So for the squats, for example, that would be the going down, and do the positive movement not as fast as possible, but kind of in a faster than the way down. So you could go for like 2 times more the way down to the time to how long you take to go up. Actually, that's how I do it myself. And what I usually tell people, to not make it too complicated, go down slowly and controlled when you do a hypertrophy training, and really take advantage of that negative movement, because that is very, very, very important and effective for muscle growth, right? So that
I think it's the most important part of that. That if you don't focus on the eccentric, like you leave a lot of hypertrophy on the table. And I think the important part, what I wanted to add for the power trainings, what you said, like exerting the maximum amount possible. And that's where a big mistake I see a lot of people make in power training is then they do like 10 box jumps. But that's not power training. If you can do it 10 times in a row, you didn't exert maximum effort. So for, I would call it like safety reasons, I try to say around 5 reps, but actually I would think it's 3 reps, maybe. So at least 2, because I feel like you need the first bounce to get into it, and then you can exert maximum power on maybe the second and third rep. So I think like a real ideal would be 3 for power training. And but then we're going to talk about my approach. Like I do it in the circuit most of the time, my power training, to also get some cardio benefit, and there it just makes sense to do 5 reps to get the volume and in also the time frame. And I think, like we both know, it's not about having perfect programs, it's getting the different types of workout intensity in that we need over the week. And so let me see, did we cover all of your approach? One more question that I had. So does that mean you do that for all main exercises in one day? So for example, you do bench press, squat, and deadlift on Monday in this approach, or do you do that for squat on Monday and then some other exercises, and for bench press on Wednesday and some other exercises?
Very
know
good.
what I mean?
Very good question. Very detailed question. Actually, I myself do it sometimes like that, to not make it too complicated for my clients. I usually do with them the first thing that you were actually mentioning, the first approach of covering all 3 strength types with all the exercises in one training, right? So I say, okay, the first set you should choose a high weight, a very high weight, so you can just do like 3 reps or something. Obviously, you have to be warmed up before, very, very important, I think. And this afterwards, as I've explained before, you do the actual 8 to 12 reps with a little bit lower weight, and then low weight, and you go for high reps, and you do that with all the trainings. That's what I do mostly with my clients, but this is why I say good question, because I myself sometimes focus a little bit more and make it a little bit more complicated, and actually focus more on strength for that muscle on that day, and then more on muscle growth for that muscle on the other day, then more for endurance on the other day, right? But I try to not make it too complicated, cover all the different strength times for all the different exercises on each 3 days.
So, and also just to clarify, for all movement patterns. So you do strength, hypertrophy, and strength endurance for push, pull, legs on all of these 3 workout days.
Mostly. Depends also on what I focus with my clients. Mostly with some exercises I don't do. Like for me, some exercises doesn't make so much sense to train.
Of course not. I mean all the
abs,
all the prehab exercises and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it sounds like this is the meat of your strength training program. Is this approach to stay within one exercise and then basically go through all 3 levels of intensity with the same exercise in one workout. Cool.
And actually, to make that very simple, actually what I tell people, choose a very high weight in the first set or in the first 2 sets of this exercise, then lower the weight so that you can do not between 1 and 3 reps, but actually between 8 to 12 reps. So you focus a little bit more on hypertrophy, and then lower the weight even more so you can do somewhere in between 15, 25, 30 reps. So you focus on muscle endurance. And I think this is the easiest way to explain it. Put off the weight throughout your training, and always try to more or less with maximum strength between 1 to 3 reps, hypertrophy 8 to 12 reps, and then everything from 15 reps is for muscle endurance. And I think
I really like the approach of saying like make it heavy, medium, and light, because that also, and that's what we talked about at the beginning. I feel a lot of people don't even realize there's 3 different dimensions, and that the training should also feel different. Like the first set, obviously it feels, I don't know, I don't want to say more difficult, because if you do 25 bodyweight squats and you did a lot before, they also feel difficult, but they should feel it should be a different kind of difficult. And that's what I think people realize if you tell them like go heavy, medium, low. Okay, this just feels different also. And if you, for example, stick with the generic gym 3x15 training plan, they don't even experience what it feels like to do like real maximum strength or power, and then it's hard to. And then it's hard to do it like you do, like you said, like also being flexible with it, and sometimes focusing on that a little bit more, and sometimes on this. But if you don't know the 3 dimensions, then it's hard to be flexible with it. Then you're stuck in the 3x10, 3x15.
Definitely, and that's why I think it's very very crucial actually to tell people, or that people actually know what these 3 different types are and how you train them. So how do you do it? Do you actually explain your clients what you're doing there and why? So actually focusing or actually referring to these 3 different types of strength, or how do you do that?
I mean, for me, definitely, I tell them there's 3 different dimensions, and my approach is more, or my general approach. I obviously also sometimes switch that up if needed, but the general approach is to have a dedicated workout on Monday for power, including maximum strength, dedicated workout for hypertrophy on Wednesday, and one for strength endurance on Friday. And since I'm working with most of the time with my 5x5 circuit training, so I put 25 minutes on the clock, and then it's EMOM, 5 exercises in a circuit. EMOM meaning every minute on the minute. So at the beginning of the minute, you do the amount of reps. And that fits very well, I feel. And on Monday, the amount of reps is 5. And on Wednesday, when we do hypertrophy, the amount of reps is 10 or to failure, around 10 reps. And on Friday, it's as many reps as you can do inside of a minute without having to take a break. So strength endurance, you try to keep moving for a minute. And so this is all I to cover it.
All of these are circuits, right? So you do exercise A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E. All right. Cool.
And then I make sure to also, like, you cover all of the movement patterns. So on a Monday, it would be jump squats, for example, plyo push-ups, like where you push yourself off, or clapping push-ups, explosive pull-ups, power pulls, everything that's explosive, quick, dynamic. And then 5 reps. And even though it's just 5 reps, that's what I meant earlier with the cardio benefits. If you do 5 jumps as high as you can, your heart rate will be very elevated. And then you have, that takes you maybe 10 seconds. And then you have 50 seconds of rest inside of this EMOM circuit. And so you have the spikes in heart rate, and I also really like to use breathing exercises then to fill the rest time with trying to get my breathing under control, get the heart rate down again, and then do 5 explosive reps and get this up and down. Well, on Friday, for example, I tried to do with strength endurance, I tried to keep it moving on a high level, medium high level for 25 minutes, doing exercises like jumping jacks, walkouts, just strength endurance type. Jumping jacks not the best example, but bodyweight squats, for example. And while on the Wednesday, same as you, like focusing on the eccentric of the movements, but then trying to reach muscle failure inside of the minute. And this is also the workout where I don't focus too much on the breath in the rest times, because this is, for me, it's the hardest workout. If you really push in each circuit, in each exercise to muscle failure, it gets pretty tough. So for beginners, I also recommend do the first 2 or 3 sets to like an 8 out of 10 intensity, and then the last 2 sets you do as many reps as you can. And I think this is a good approach for combining, like you say, the eccentrics, making sure you go slow, but also having the volume for the different movement patterns inside of the circuit. And so this is why I focus mostly on making sure. And so that's the difference in our approach. So Monday for me is like exclusively explosive, and while Wednesday is more geared towards hypertrophy, but also including classic strengths. So it would be pull-ups, for example, and then if you do M-rep sets of pull-ups and you're around 8 reps in the first 1 or 2 sets, you're doing strength training more on the maximum strength side, and then in the last 2 rounds it gets more towards building more lactic acid, being more hypertrophy focused. And
yeah, so that is actually, like, to sum that up, that is the difference between our approach. I think we both actually make sure that we include all 3 different kinds of strength in our training. We just include it in a different way. I spread it out throughout the week, or I actually implement it in each of my trainings throughout the week, let's put it like that. And you actually make sure that Monday you have for this kind of strength, then another type of strength on Wednesday, and another type of strength on Friday, which also I think makes a lot of sense. So I think both approaches work. Both approaches have their reason to exist. All right. So this is just a different.
What I like about your approach, for example, is that it doesn't matter too much if you miss a workout, because you're just going to do basically the same thing the next workout again, maybe with a few exercise switches. But for me, if you miss the power workout on Monday, when would you repeat that? So my structure works more if you're really not just disciplined, but if your lifestyle about it, or if you have a lot of work that goes in the way, or if your lifestyle is just not very structured, then it's definitely better to have workouts that cover more at the same time.
So you don't miss. Like this 1 week, you have to actually repeat like just 2 weeks after, right? And I think 2 weeks later, that's what I generally tell people. I mean, 2 weeks later, having the same stress again, you're gonna probably be back at 0, right? Or not at 0, maybe, if you've been training for months, but the last workout wouldn't have helped you a lot to improve, right? If you actually missed the second workout. So training every second week, that's what I'm saying, doesn't make a lot of sense. So continuous.
I mean, for me, it's a week. Like if you do one thing once a week, that's not. Then you're just going to 0 every time. As said, maybe if you go really, really hard on the hypertrophy, but then more like bodybuilder type, you go 4 hours into the gym and really kill yourself, which I don't recommend, and which I don't think anyone listening to us would do that. And so,
and I mean, then also it gets important to split workouts. I mean, if you work out every day, like that bodybuilder you were talking about, like this thing doesn't make sense that they train full body every day for 4 hours. So then we would have to start split. So I think for most of the people, to put that in a nutshell, it makes a lot of sense to train all 3 different kinds of strengths. So there's different approaches. You have the approach that we've been talking about, to actually train maximum strength on Monday, then actually train hypertrophy on Wednesday, and on Friday train the muscle endurance. I do all 3 different kinds in each training. I think both things work. And as we said, both things make sense. Maybe, as you said before, it makes sense for somebody who's not so continuous with this training to do my approach. So it doesn't make so much a big difference if they miss it. Then on the other way around, I also think it makes a lot of sense to do your approach. But for people who actually are continuous in their training already, so that they make sure that they actually can do these 3 workouts a week for a while, for months, right? So
no, totally.
Definitely.
And I think one thing I also wanted to highlight is that we're both doing full body workouts every day, or every workout day, which I think is important for so many reasons. From getting more blood flow to all the different body parts, to practicing actual movement patterns. And I think this is what we both do. What is probably an important aspect of it is that we're not splitting on body parts and saying like, let's do legs on Monday. Or I know a little bit about your training approach, or mine even. Like if we do that sometimes for certain clients, we still make sure to put other exercise in that at least get some blood flowing into the upper body or the other way around. And yeah, I think that carries both approaches. Like that, you have to make sure to move everything.
Yeah, definitely. And then maybe one little question from my side. You said before, for older people, it is very crucial to train, especially the maximum strength or the power part, right? The power strength.
Yeah.
So maybe go explain a little bit more why. I mean, I can guess, but maybe it could be interesting to some people.
I mean, because the power is, in my opinion, that what leaves earliest, or what you lose the easiest. And even young people can feel that if you're not springy, if you're not athletic, like getting that back is hard work. And the older you get, the harder it is to get it back. And I also think it's from a health perspective when it comes to bone density, joint health, just the intensity of the movements. I mean, of course, you can't take an 80-year-old that never did anything and let him do jump squats, but having and I also like working a lot with isometric exercises. What I understand from what I read on the internet and in magazines and stuff is that the intent of the movement matters. So even if you do isometrics against a non-moving weight, if you slowly ramp up the resistance, or if you start to push as hard as you can in more fashion, that changes the results you get for your muscles, for your joints. Your body reacts differently to your intention of movement. And so now I think plyometric training dumps, but so plyometrics are not the same as power training, as you know, but just to clarify that, I think maximum power output training and plyometrics as a tool for that is crucial for old people to prevent accidents, to reduce injuries after accidents that will definitely happen. And also that's a side note. In my experience, I found that older people enjoy that a lot because they feel like they're getting older and slower, and like we do too, but for us it's more, we don't appreciate that yet as much. You know, for us it's normal to just jump, but then in my experience, if you do that with older clients, they really like the experience and the feeling of still being able to do that.
Yeah, and having and feeling powerful, right? And having the power to
exactly
to still jump
and just
to still
definitely. I mean,
yeah. Cool. So that actually answers my question pretty well. I also think that helps a lot for people like preventing injuries, like falling. Always, if you fall down, it helps a lot if you have the strength and the power in your upper body to actually make sure you're not falling on your face, but you're falling on your hands, and you can do like an eccentric push-up, right? So I think that is like a very, very big factor to actually prevent injuries from accidents that will happen anyways, right? Not only for old people, but also for young people. This is important. I mean, also like a young person who doesn't move at all, like let him fall down and he's probably gonna break his something, you know. So so
I mean, it's
for
just
all of us,
for us, it's just not as like catastrophic. You know, like you have 10 years to heal your broken hip. Like if it happens when you're 80, that's probably it.
Yeah.
You know? And
but this is also this is like what I had in the back of my mind is you were saying before that, like, and that's what I see. Like most people get like 15 reps. Like they get the gym plans from, I don't know, from their personal trainer, from somebody in the gym. They get a gym plan and it's always 15 reps. People don't fucking know why. Sorry for the expression, but people don't have no idea why, and they just do it because they're on the plan. But like what is not covered at all with 15 reps is the explosive and the maximum strength which you will need to actually prevent injuries, but also talking about other sports. Knowing how to do 15 or doing 15 squats, for example. I used to play basketball before, and there it's really important to have explosiveness in your jumps. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to do 15 reps of squats. Yeah, you can do that, but you should focus more regarding that sport and regarding jumping high on maximum strength, explosiveness. So like a guy who's doing I don't know 15, 20 reps to I don't know to improve his explosiveness or his maximum strength, like is doing something wrong because that doesn't help. So this is why I think
Definitely.
these like traditional plans of 15 reps each exercise will make a lot of sense, right?
I mean, it does for like the beginner for maybe the first week. The
Yeah.
problem is that
Yeah.
they don't get updated and that you don't cover all of it that we discussed, which is so important. We're also at the end of our time, but I think we covered it pretty well and
Yes.
showed our different approaches that both have their place. And yeah, I think that was a good discussion. I liked it.
Same over here.
I-
It's good to talk about it. And then I would say we are good. We can stop the recording and
Yeah.
continue next week.
Perfect. See you next week.
All right.